Okay, so let's just kind of review a little bit the steps that we have been taking as we approach this text set and write an opinion essay. Now, first, remember, we looked at the prompt and we determined what exactly it was that we needed to do. What are they asking us to do? And we determined that they wanted us to write an essay. I'll wait for you to settle because all that I'm getting right now is noise from your chairs. And I'm just going to stop and remind you, I hope everybody put their essay back in the basket for me. Once you wrote down your information on your conference sheet, your essay should be back in the basket. Okay. Again, I'll wait until you settle in your chairs. We determined that this text set, the prompt for this text set, was asking us if we thought that zoos were harmful or helpful. And so we began to read this text set, and we did something called annotating. We annotated the text set. That means we wrote and left ourselves little breadcrumbs in the white space so that we would know which parts to go back to. It also helps us to identify things that are talked about across the text set. Jaden, are you waiting for the next thing to do?
No, he's still on it.
Okay, you need to focus for me, please. When we annotate like that, it helps us to notice patterns in the writing. It helps us to say, oh, they're talking about habitat again here. Oh, they're talking about mental illness again here. And so we can synthesize that information across the different sources that are in here. Which was what our next step was after we read and annotated our text. We started to create a plan. And if you remember, when we do our plan for our essay, we make sure that we are putting our thesis statement in a cloud at the top, and then each of our main ideas we put in a box beneath it. Now, the lesson after that, we brainstormed a whole list of subtopics that we heard over and over again, repeated through our patterns that we noticed with our annotating. We had 4 of them, I think, up on the board: care and behavior, habitats versus the natural environment. And from there, that's when we write a sentence that is a main idea sentence. Okay? For example, enclosures have improved to be more like a natural habitat. Okay? Now, main idea is not a detail, right? We have to be careful that it's not a detail, because then it's very difficult to elaborate on it. So you want to think in terms of being able to supply examples of that. And so under this main idea, we could talk about the different animals they mentioned. Junior was mentioned, Maggie was mentioned. They talked about, as far as this specific main idea, they talked about some legislature that happened in order to make things better. Okay, so we planned, we found details, and your planning sheet was completed, or should have been completed, on Friday. So now we're ready to write. Now, working with the text set actually is kind of great because it gives us the opportunity to use the 2 different hooks at the bottom of our chart that we have not been able to use before. When we were writing our opinion essay, we kind of had to stick with the simile and metaphor, rhetorical questions, global statements, and scenarios. But now, because we have a text set and we actually have information in front of us, we're going to try to use one of these two types of hooks. Okay, so let's take a closer look. Surprising fact. All right. If when you were reading that text set, there was something, a piece of information in there that kind of surprised you or made you pause or had you thinking in your head, I didn't know that. Okay, that may be the indication that that is a surprising fact. Okay, let's look at the example. According to the American Institute for Research, 2.5 million children in our country are homeless. That means 1 in every 30 children in the United States. Chances are someone sitting in your classroom right now does not have a home. So when you're looking at this surprising fact, I want you to notice the way it's written. First of all, the writer of the essay or the writer of the hook is not just saying this is a surprising fact. They're attributing it to somebody. They're giving credit for it to somebody. They are authenticating the information because they're associating it with the American Institute for Research. So it's not just Aiden C. who's giving us this information. He's not standing there and doing it, but it was actually researched. So now it becomes more powerful because it's not one of us saying it. It is somebody that is in authority, an expert who knows this topic. Okay? All right. That's a surprising fact. The other one is a quote. Now, when you quote text, you put it in quotation marks because they're not your words. They're not your words. So, here's a quote. 16 million kids in America are not getting the food they need. This shocking statistic comes from No Kid Hungry, an organization whose mission is to end childhood hunger in America. So notice they quote it, all right? And then they attribute it to somebody. This is not just me saying that. This is the No Kid Hungry organization who specializes in this. They're experts on this topic. They have the information. Okay, so how do we do that? How do we do that? Well, the way we do that is we have to go back and reread the text. So look at your text, your Zoos text set. And when we read today, what we're going to be doing is reading. I want to get the one that I had with the annotations on it. I don't know what I did with it. Here it is. When we read, our lens today is going to be for a place to find a quote or a shocking statistic. Now, some of the things that you're going to want to be looking for, first of all, I'm going to wait so that everybody's eyes can be up here just for a second. Then you can look. I know it's hard to see, so then you can look down at your text set. You have to read with the lens. First of all, what is your thesis? If you're saying that zoos are helpful for animals, then you're going to read with a lens, looking for good quotes and statistics to support your thesis. If you think it's harmful, then you're looking the same, but now you want it to support the harm. Okay? Let me show you an example. As we start to read here, keep animals in zoos? We don't think so. There is documented research that many animals removed from their natural habitat and kept in captivity have developed a mental illness known as psychosis. Now, the trick here, guys, is going to be to try not to use a quote that you're going to use inside of your essay. So you kind of have to filter that in as well. Animals with this disease often pace back and forth, twist their necks, bob their heads up and down, turn in never-ending circles, and even tear holes in their own skin. Can you imagine being so miserable that you want to inflict harm on yourself? Once, when we visited a zoo, we noticed that some of the animals kept in cages were grabbing onto the bars and shaking them. If you could have looked into these animals' eyes like we did, you would have seen deep sadness. It is this sadness that continues to haunt us this day. Okay, so I'm thinking to myself, if I'm writing my essay and my thesis statement is zoos are harmful to animals, I might be able to use something like this to kind of grab the attention of my reader. So let's say I decide, oh, I like this sentence. And I could quote this, and when I write my introduction, I would start with my quote, but I would have to remember to give the credit to the authors, right? So who made this statement? The people who wrote it. Stephanie Santana and Sean Lucas. So if I start my introduction off, I might start, if you could have looked into these animals' eyes like we did, you would have seen deep sadness. And then I might be able to say, this quote, I'm wondering if I should attribute it first. This quote from Stephanie Santana and Sean Lucas captures their experience when visiting a zoo. And then I would say, if you could have looked into these animals' eyes like we did, you would have seen deep sadness. All right, can you see how I used a quote? All right, let's read on. It has been documented that Junior, a killer whale, was removed from his natural habitat in Iceland and placed in a tank in Niagara Falls. He died 4 years later, deprived of outside air, sunlight, and companionship. Okay, I'm thinking probably that's going to be somebody's detail, so I don't want to pick a quote from here. Junior is not alone. There are many aquatic animals that are taken from their natural habitats and placed in water tanks and aquariums around the world. These animals are separated from their families. I'll wait while whoever is in their book bag or their pencil pouch. I can hear somebody rustling. And are forced to live in groups that are nothing like their own families. Okay, I'm going to skim down here because there's something I wanted to show you. Okay, here's a perfect example where we can get some kind of a quote, because the Born Free Foundation, they actually did a study, okay, performed a worldwide study of zoos which revealed that zoochosis is widespread in confined animals around the world. And this is the part that would be the quote. The rest would be a summary in your own words. Let's see. A worldwide study conducted by the Born Free Foundation showed, open the quote, that zoochosis is widespread in confined animals around the globe. Zoochosis is a mental illness, right? So I want to explain that to my reader in the hook as well. Okay, then if we come down here a little bit further, we have globalanimal.org who's writing this. Okay, and we can look again for either more facts or details or quotes from somebody who is an expert and who is speaking. Okay, so it's difficult because each of you has your own essay, each of you has your own main ideas, each of you has your own details to decide which things that which parts of this you could use to find a quote or a fact to share, a surprising fact. So you're going to have to discern that on your own because each of your essays is an individual essay. That's why you can look at your plan. When you're looking at your plan, you already know the details you're going to use. So as you reread this text set looking for a quote, then you're going to be just looking for that. What quote or surprising fact can I include in my hook? Because that's the kind of hook you're writing today. Either one of those. Either a surprising fact or a quote. And then I'm going to pass out a new checklist for you, because if you remember last week, we threw away the personal essay checklist because we're done with personal essay, and now we have a new checklist to use. Today we're going to write our introduction. And I want you to use your checklist. A lot of you are using it to make sure that you include everything you're supposed to. But there's also a lot of you who are not even looking at it. I don't see it on your desk when you're writing. When I go to read your essay, I can tell that you didn't follow the structure that we've been learning. Okay, I want you to notice that even though we're writing an opinion essay, our checklist has not changed for the introduction. So we're writing an opinion essay. The structure of the introduction is still the same. The first 2 to 3 sentences are going to do what, Aiden? See. In your introduction, what are the first 2 to 3 sentences going to do? Engage the reader. That's your hook. 2 to 3 sentences. And your hook today is going to either be a quote or a surprising fact. And again, please be sure to use your chart. Obviously, these examples are not going to work on your essay because you're not talking about homelessness or hunger. But you can use them as an inspiration for how to frame your hook by using a quote or a surprising fact. Once you have your hook done, the rest is all on your planning sheet. You're going to copy your main idea sentences. Each is a sentence. Each is a separate sentence. It's not strung together with commas. It's a sentence that begins with a capital letter and ends with a period. After you've done all 3, then you're just going to copy your thesis statement from your plan. Okay, so you should have your paper, your notebook paper. If you have not done so already, please go ahead and put your heading on it. And then I want you to go ahead and write your introduction. Your introduction should be complete today. If you finish before time is called, then I'd like you to go to your game board. So if you finish before the end of the time, go to your game board. Go ahead and start.